Richard C. Hoagland, our science advisor and head of the EnterpriseMission.com. Well, our science advisor, head of the EnterpriseMission.com, Richard C. Hoagland. And Richard, I might as well say my farewell now to you and Robin, seeing that the Earth and Venus may smash in 3.5 billion years.
You got us lead with these silly stories. Why?
This is exciting stuff.
No, it's not.
What's
It's
orbital
boring.
chaos? What's orbital chaos?
It's boring.
Boring? You got better?
Boring, absolutely.
All right. But what's orbital chaos?
The problem is we don't even know how gravity works. The idea that two guys could do a calculation for 5 billion, with a B, years from now, and have anything scientific to report is nuts. You and I did a show several months ago on the discoveries of Wernher von Braun with the Explorer 1 launch, showing that gravity did not work that night the way they all expected it was supposed to work. The satellite was 12 minutes late. It went into a huge looping orbit. The reason I kind of got all this stuff on the tip of my tongue is I'm doing a revision of Dark Mission, and we've done some very interesting new calculations which indicate how even more bizarre it was than what I reported on this show. Well, if the first guys, Wernher von Braun, the Uber rocket guy, couldn't get gravity right for the first American satellite in 1957, do you think they're going to get gravity right in 5 billion years?
Nope.
So this is a silly story. It's obviously published because it has the kind of glitz which people seem to love, particularly some of these science editors, and it means absolutely nothing. Now, there are stories tonight we're going to talk about.
And big ones.
Including 2012, which will have a direct and immediate effect on everybody's life, including that of the Coast audience. By the way, have you ever done a poll of coasters, if we can coin a term, as to why they listen to Coast?
No, but we're putting in a new polling system on our brand new website.
It will be very interesting because I think most producers think that people listen to Coast because they want something different. They're tired of CNN. They're tired of murders at the Holocaust Museum. They're tired of politics. They're tired of everything, and they want to expand their mind and escape. Well, I got news for those producers. This is the spot for the real news, and the stuff you see on CNN and MSNBC and Fox, most of that is the fake stuff. That's the noise. That's the stuff that never changes. The stuff that we talk about on this show, George, will actually affect every person on this planet at some point, and that's the difference. And
the mainstream is starting to follow this program.
Well, they have for years.
Yeah, they're jumping all over.
Remember the night that I came on our show back in, 2000? No, it was 1997. And I talked about the Phoenix Lights and how there was this amazing phenomenon, a 2-mile wide wing-shaped craft hovering over the city of Phoenix and all that, which had occurred, of course, months before. This was in June when I did the show. It actually occurred in March. The next day,
it was a story.
Every single major media outlet, Washington Post, New York Times, CBS, NBC, CNN, they all hit it. It was like they flipped a switch. And even Art, who has this very strong resistance against, quote, conspiracy, he had to agree with me that it was like everybody was listening that night. And they suddenly realized, for some reason, oh, my God, this is an important story. We should do something. So let's talk about the important stories, like the military story.
That is huge.
It's enormous, and I'm going to give you a take tonight that you are never, ever going to expect from me on this, okay?
All right. I'm baffled by the story. Why do they want to hold back information?
I was sitting here working on this stuff this afternoon. Of course, revising the book went by the board because I have to get ready to do Coast tonight. There's too much important stuff, and I actually have to do some homework. And it suddenly hit me what's underpinning this military nonsense. So, lay out the premise again. What was the story?
All right, here we go.
Today?
For 15 years, scientists have benefited from data from classified U.S. satellites of all kinds of natural events, fireballs, events in the atmosphere. But not anymore. A recent U.S. military policy is now saying observations by government spacecraft of incoming bodies and fireballs are classified secret They are not to be released. Bottom line, space rocks or anything else in the atmosphere are now classified. And I don't understand why.
This is nutty. This is really, really, really nutty unless you get outside the mainstream box and look at this from the coast perspective. Tonight, I'm going to lay out a theory that I think makes sense, that's unique to you, this show, and this audience, and we'll see how long it takes for the mainstream to pick up on it.
All right,
okay?
Let's hear it.
This has been an invaluable service, not only for science, who just like to ask questions and get answers, but we have spacecraft, military spacecraft in orbit in various high and low Earth orbits that have incredibly sophisticated sensors. The scientific community, even the National Science Foundation, even NASA, could not afford to monitor the planet to the degree that these military satellites put up, obviously, during the Cold War and afterwards, have been looking at every cubic centimeter above the Earth, going out several thousand miles and looking at the things that interact with the Earth's atmosphere. So you're absolutely right. This is a baffling, makes no sense kind of decision, because we know that space, particularly near Earth orbit, is an increasingly dangerous place, right?
Yeah, of course.
There's asteroids, there's meteors, there's man-made debris. We need to be able to monitor this. The NASA people, for instance, have to monitor what re-enters so they get a kind of a feeling for the population of what's in low Earth orbit. We know that there are near-Earth asteroids. It only takes one 6 miles across, and human civilization is toast. So why, in the wake of Shoemaker-Levy 9, which back in the 90s was the big comet that fragmented into 21 fragments and slammed into Jupiter, and gave us those amazing, spectacular images of what happens when the kinetic energy of millions of hydrogen bombs is released by an impact on a planet of something like this. Why would the military suddenly say, oh, we're not going to share this data with anybody else anymore? Is it because somebody's worried that there's going to be an asteroid that's going to sneak up on us? No, that makes no sense. Is it because we're going to be giving to the Russians or the Chinese or Al-Qaeda, give me a break, secrets of sources and methods?
Nope.
No. And then it hit me. George, what if there's a war going on upstairs? 1 year ago, Robin was down at the Tesla convention. I couldn't make it.
This is an Ed Grimsley story.
Exactly. Ed Grimsley took her and Charles Osman and George Gabori and Bill Alec and a bunch of people up on a roof of the hotel. And Robin came back so excited. I mean, she is so bored to tears with UFO stories. I cannot impress upon you how bored she is with UFOs. Except this night, she came back gushing because she had seen them.
Yep.
With the night vision, whatever the state of the art now is.
It's into 4, but he has 3.
Yeah.
Third generation.
She had seen things flying above the planet in the dark nighttime skies over Albuquerque that were absolutely impossible to categorize as airplanes, birds, moths, anything.
Satellites? No way.
Nothing.
No way.
So let's back up a minute and say, suppose we're involved in some kind of interplanetary war.
That is what Grimsley thinks.
And, well, the data supports that.
I thought he was nuts when he first told me that.
Well, remember, we don't do at Enterprise UFOs. So why am I coming out with this theory? Because I frankly think there is a war going on between factions of the secret space program.
And they're afraid these satellites are going to capture it and someone's going to get a hold of it?
Well, what happens is when you take this data from the military sensors on these satellites, they don't filter it. They just give it to the scientists.
Okay. Here you go.
The scientists will then figure out, wait a minute, this isn't bowlines, fireballs, asteroids, moths, hiccups. Oh, my God, these are spaceships. And they don't want the general scientific community, which had incredible credibility, of course, if it ever came out with this, to have the source data to come to this conclusion. That's the only thing, George, to me that makes sense, that the stuff that Grimsley and others are now seeing, that my dear Robin actually saw with her own eyes.
And I've seen 2 with Grimsley's third-generation goggles.
So I've heard. Well, if that stuff is going on, which is pretty hard to deny that it is, then the question is, well, who are the players? I mean, is it really serious that we're